carried between them, then gently lowered to the ground. A whimper made her pull her gaze towards her mother, who, while Clara watched, sank to her knees, dropping her face to the dark shape. Clara noticed then that part of the form had been covered by a shawl, which her mother began to unwrap. As her papa's face was exposed, Clara's breath caught. Blood lay black on his swollen skin and soaked his white collar. The men stood as watchmen while her mother leaned over her husband, gripping his shoulder and resting her nose in his neck as the girl had seen her do so many times, her sobs lost in the woolen shawl. Clara waited for what seemed like forever before her mamma, wiping her face with the heel of her hand, sat back on her heels. Then slowly and carefully, as if to avoid hurting him further, she reached to her husband's kerchief and untied it from his neck. Pulling it gently towards her, she stood. With a glance at the men, she nodded and turned away from her husband, walking towards her home. Clara's gaze didn't leave her mother, but she was aware that the men had picked up her father and were carrying him into the darkness. Her mother's face was pale, her steps hesitant as she stared at the red patterned cloth in her hand. Just as Mamma's dusty shoe reached to the first step, her brother let out a wail, making mother and daughter turn in unison towards the noise. Without a word, the woman went to the child, lifting him up and kissing the soft hair on his head, whispering soothing words into his ear. With a jut of her chin, she indicated for her daughter to sit, and when she did, placed the baby into her lap. He was big and heavy for the 4-year-old, but she rocked him in her arms and played with his fingers as he chattered happily to himself. Mamma quietly sat at the table opposite them and reached for her sewing box. Laying the square of fabric out flat, she took up a pair of scissors, pausing, a tremor in her hand, before making the first snip. Carefully, she cut the fabric into thin strips. Then the girl watched intently as her mother, murmuring words quietly to herself, plucked a dark hair from her own head. Then another, and another, until 6 black hairs lay on top of each strip of her father's kerchief. Deftly threading her needle, the woman folded the first length of cloth around the hair and, her fingers pushing and tucking, she sewed the thin strip of fabric to safely encase the hair. Her lips didn't stop moving until all 6 were finished, and she put down her needle. Gathering 3 red strips, she tied them together at one end, then quickly braided them tightly. Repeating her actions with the second set, she was soon knotting the end securely. Resting her hands on her thighs, Clara's mamma sat back, contemplating her work. The boy watched, occasionally chirruping to himself. The woman smiled briefly, her honey-coloured eyes lacking their usual light, before picking up the braided strips and standing. Taking her son's arm gently, she wrapped the fabric around his left wrist. Once, twice, 3 times, whispering words the girl did not understand. Tying it tightly, she then turned to her daughter. "This will protect you," she said, lifting the second braided band. The girl placed her brother on her chair, where he sat chattering, and lifted her right hand. Her mother wrapped it tightly around her wrist twice, muttering her secret words as she did. Knotting the ends, she turned to her daughter's light eyes. "It is a circle of love that will tie you to me and to Papa, and also to your brother." They both glanced at the boy. "Wherever you go, whatever you do, your Mama and Papa will always be with you, even when we are not with you." Her mother's voice cracked as she carried on. "And if I cannot, you must take care of your brother." Clara nodded, contemplating the red